Hi, Brad Jerkovich here. Welcome to the Brad Jerkovich podcast. This is going to be a great show today. A lot of fun. Football is in the air, and so excited to have my good friend, Coach Justin Scogin, head football coach at Airline High School in Bossier City, Louisiana. Coach, welcome today.
Man, I'm pumped up to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
I love it, man. Football, it is in the air. We've got the Super Bowl happening, NFL, lots of things happening. High school football, though, is fantastic. Did you grow up with that? Was your dad a coach? How did you get into that, man?
No, I did not grow up around football. Didn't even I didn't even really play all the way through. I never played a meaningful down to high school football.
Yeah.
I was more of a baseball guy. Grew up, loved it. And then, my philosophy's always been, if you're good at teaching, if you're good at being a coach, you can coach anything.
Okay.
And got in with a phenomenal mentor, and next thing you know, I've made a career of this somehow.
It's amazing. You're now at Airline High School, which is one of the largest high schools in the state of Louisiana for sure. Big time football program. Before you got there, where else did you coach, my man?
Shoot, let's see. I started off in Leesville in 2009. Coached there for 3 years.
Okay.
Went to Parkway for 5 years. Went back to Leesville for 5, and now I've been at Airline for 4.
It's amazing the life of a high school football coach. I mean, it really is. It's that the journey that you guys are on is incredible. You came to Airline High School. You guys have gone to the playoffs. You've got a high off. What's your strategy? I'm just curious, just from a football coach. Are you more of an offensive guy, defensive guy?
I've coached both sides.
Yeah.
I really have. I actually started coaching defense, and my second year, I got called up to the big leagues. It was Leesville at the time. We didn't have a whole bunch of coaches on staff, and Coach Feaster called me up, and I started coaching offense, and I learned the scheme, and I learned everything that was going on, and kind of from there, I stayed one more year and ended up calling the plays, and then being young and thinking I knew everything in the world, I just and then when I got to Parkway, I went back to defense.
Okay.
And then I got moved to offensive coordinator, and I've been over there ever since. So it's definitely more of an offensive guy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a strategy with that. When I lived in Lubbock, of course, Texas Tech, we had Mike Leach, who really, that incredible air raid offense was just incredible. But then when he left, Tommy Tuberville came in as head coach. Well, he's a defensive guy. So it really is interesting philosophy and approach to that. I just know that people, they enjoy watching airline football, man. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we like, of course, it's such a wonderful school, I tell everybody that, it's such a wonderful school. It's ran by great people. Yeah. Our superintendent's great, our administration's great.
Yeah.
There's not a better place in the world than Airline High School, when you get to go there every day. I feel like I steal money, I get to go there and I get to play, I get to coach a kid's game, and, I get to go out to practice and throw and do all that stuff, and it's ridiculous, just
that's cool.
How much fun we have.
Well, I mean, I think it's cool that you enjoy your job, man, and that
great
opportunity. When you look at high school football and the influence of a coach, was there somebody that maybe influenced you? Was there a coach that influenced your life, or is it just do you really understand and are aware of the influence that you as a coach can have on these young guys? It's amazing.
And I tell people this all the time. High school is the last step you get to be an influence, because once they go to college, I mean, they're not worried about, the kind of, you can say all you want, but, they're worried about it. It's when you're getting paid $10-12 million, it's a result driven deal.
Wow.
We're still in the realm of trying to teach these kids how to be good people and making them do the right thing and making them do push-ups when they don't do the right thing. And they think it's hilarious, they think it's great, and, trying to do that. I had some fantastic coaches growing up. My dad coached me, my uncle coached me. I had a coach in high school named Bruce Stewart, who actually lives not too far from me up here. He was a phenomenal coach and one of my favorite coaches, that I ever had. I would say no one really steered me towards this, profession. It was just kind of one I fell into.
Yeah.
But, I do. I think high school, I think in high school, if you want it to, obviously it's still a results-driven game.
Right.
You got to win games, but you've got to try to at least make these kids, you got to try to, instill some stuff in them, enough to make them better people when they graduate.
I think it's important. Sports is such a cool environment to do that. Like you said, develop young men and women in sports. Football, I remember just, my youth pastor, when I moved to Southern California, how influential that youth pastor was in my life. Well, he played football at a collegiate level. He was, fired up for Jesus, loved the Lord, loved the church, but he loved students and invested in us. And, his football expertise, his leadership, everything about life, his faith, it meant a lot to me as a young man, junior high and high school. I just know that you and your staff mean a lot, and you have an incredible platform to influence these guys. I think a lot of these kids probably come from all kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah.
And to have someone like you that would not just love the game and want them to excel in that, but I've always gotten from you, Coach, that you really do love these kids and you want the best for them.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the greatest 4 years of their life.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. For me, high school was the best time of my life until I got to college. And but it really is. I mean, high school's such a fun time. And the kids are still, you can still reach them, before they grow up and go their own way, but I've been blessed, just in who's taught me and who's, I got in with a guy, when I first started coaching, David Feaster, who, working for him, like you said, having him as a mentor really kind of changed my life and how I viewed things, and, definitely got me to become more of a Christian, and that kind of really, changed the ways that I looked at things and how I approach things, and, and how just kind of how live your everyday life, and to be a good guy and a good coach while you're doing it. And like I said, I give him a lot of credit in that realm, because my parents raised me. It's about my childhood and growing up was about as good as anybody could ever hope for. We had a phenomenal upbringing and all that stuff, and then when you get out into the real world, you hope you find people like him that will help you get to that next level. And become not only a better, coach, but a better person. And, he really did that for me.
Well, and you mentioned some things, I'm sure you would reference them as well, but I'm just curious, your philosophy, obviously, okay, you're more of an offensive-minded head football coach. What about for these young men that come into your program? You go, okay, I've got these kids, for a few years here. What are 2 or 3 things that you go, they need to know this about life? Because I think with football, hey, you're going to get knocked down. You got to get back up. You got to fight through a losing stretch. All those kinds of are there just some 2 or 3 things that you go, I want my coaches to know this. I want my players to know this for life.
No, I mean, I don't really sit down and say, hey, look, I try my best to not be cliche.
Okay.
Because everything everything in sports is so, you got to row the boat. You got to trust the process. Everything is so just cliche after cliche after cliche after cliche. I think the thing they need to understand the most is life's not fair. Not everyone's going to get treated the same, but everyone will be treated fair. And at the end of the day, you got to learn how to deal with adversity. Everyone's going to deal with adversity, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter how high your status is. Everyone's going to deal with adversity, no matter where you go or what you do. And I think that's the thing that and the biggest thing is the one thing I always tell our I want the kids to have fun.
Yeah.
They're not college players. They're not in the NFL. Yeah. It's not a business yet. Because if they do have the opportunity to go to the next level, I tell all of them. I tell them, I'm very upfront with them. Look, it's never going to be like you are. It's never going to be like what you have right now. And that's a crazy. That's the crazy thing about it. It's the last opportunity to really have fun playing sports. And do it with your friends.
That's an interesting perspective. There is a lot of change happening on the collegiate level. Where do you see that? How is that affecting the high school level of football when you see collegiate programs? I mean, the money, you see schools partnering with corporations now. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I'm just curious your thoughts, man. High school coach, you've had players go to the next level. You've seen all that process. I'm just curious, where are we at today, man? Where are we going?
In a bad place.
Really?
We're in a bad place.
So you're concerned?
I'm very concerned
about
the trajectory the trajectory, the longevity of sports. Because where we're at right now is just it's a dark place.
Wow.
And everything that happens in NCAA sports trickles down eventually to high school sports.
Yeah.
And you see it more often. The coaches get fired quicker. The kids want to do certain things. They want to where we're at in college sports right now it's a disaster.
Wow.
It's crazy right now in college sports.
So you're genuinely concerned about it?
I'm genuinely concerned, but in the same turn, I think they do deserve to be paid. I really do. I think I've said as long as I've been in sports, these kids deserve to get paid. This is a $1 billion business, and they're going out there and killing themselves, and everybody's like, well, they're getting their education paid for. But and I can understand that if this was if this was $1 million business, but this, we're talking about billions of dollars, and they're the ones out there doing it for these people. So I do think that they deserve stuff in return. I've always thought that they should be rewarded handsomely for their part in this whole deal. But I think, when we got to that point, it just kind of the wheels fell off, you know, and people consistently tried to push the envelope a little further. And then, you get the result of, man, it's out of control.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy to think, that, just a couple of years ago, they were giving kids, they were holding kids out seasons and games and all that just for going and getting, a better deal on a car or a tattoo or, just crazy stuff, you know, and now we're paying, these kids $4 and $5 million a year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think it does away. It's hard to keep parity in these big, because they can't compete, you can't compete with the big colleges, you used to love to see Louisiana Tech and, somebody go 13-0 and go, like when Tulane or Tech had a really good year. It's just, but they can't keep up with these schools. I think that's a huge part of it. But
it's an interesting dynamic just from a fan standpoint. To me, I saw somebody, I don't know, it was a parody account or whatever, but they were like, "What are introductions of NFL players going to be in the future?" When it says, my name is such and such, and I went to Duke. I went to Maryland.
I did see that.
I went to, Ohio State, and oh, by the way, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no loyalty, there's no longevity. I just wonder, that's going to hurt some of the dynamic that we've experienced, at least in America, from a college level.
It's crazy too, especially at some of the higher profile positions. You have a lot of these quarterbacks making a lot more than their quarterback coach. And we're talking about millions more than the guy coaching the guy at LSU or Texas Tech or just you pick out a blue blood program. Likely that guy is making more than the guy coaching him. And it just kind of has a minor league feel right now. And I think the reason that everyone loved college football is because the kids were relatable. It was, man, I saw that kid playing high school 2 years ago, man. And, I heard he's a really good Christian kid, and then, you can relate to these kids, whereas the NFL guys, it was harder to relate to those guys because they were millionaires and they were celebrities. And I think that's kind of made more of a trickle down to the college game. And it turns a lot of people off. But, my philosophy is, we just had a really, high profile guy. And, I told him, take advantage of it while you can. You can get money right now that can start you off. You may not be able to live on it for the rest of your life. But, if you don't make it to the NFL, you can have a real big jump start on life. With the kind of money that you can make right now in college sports. So I think just like everything, there's a really positive side to it for kids like that, and there's a negative side to it with how far we've pushed it. But overall, I think there is an evil median. There is a median in the middle to where we can try to get to, and we can kind of try to build some trust on both sides. But I think just the overall scope of it right now is. It's out of control, and somebody's got to get a hold of it.
I'm just curious, are there any one or two things that you would recommend that they do?
I think they should have a cap. I think they should have a cap on how much you can give your team.
Okay.
I think they should have kind of like the NFL does. I think they should have a cap on how much the kids that are coming into college sports can make. And I think they at some point they have to say, okay, look, this is how much you can make. This is, because when we started NIL, I was always under the assumption that, take for example, when you had Leonard Fournette and you had Tyrann Mathieu and all these great players that were coming through LSU, you would always see their jerseys in the bookstore. And we all knew that those were Leonard Fournette, but you couldn't put their name on the back. And I for some crazy reason, I always thought hey, that's how you would that's how you would benefit from your name, image, and likeness. Hey, however many jersey sales you could get, you'd get money from that. I didn't think it was going to be, hey, we'll pay you $2 million for you to go and say, hey, come eat at this place, or just unreasonable amounts of money, and but I think they need to put a cap on that. I think they need to put a cap on how much you can pay your team and all that stuff. But just to try to keep the parity, to where, just the richer schools aren't able to just go out and buy all the players.
What about things like, when I talk to the guys, it's like, well, if a player goes to a school and he just wants to leave, do you pay that money back? Or do you have to stay out a year? You know what I'm saying? Like,
we're about to find out a whole lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
We're about to find out a whole lot with this Duke situation.
Oh, it's true, dude. Yeah.
They're suing Mensa for leaving, and I think maybe going to Miami. But this is going to set precedents. The Ole Miss Clemson deal is going to set precedents. Yeah. There are going to be along the way things that will set precedents. Yeah. But if you look at all this stuff, it's all right now. It's par for the course. I think you need to handle it where you sign a contract. You sign a 2-year deal. If you want to get out of your deal, you got to pay. You got to pay the money back. Yeah. Or just I don't know. It's crazy. The transfer portal has really. For everything that it's really been a good outlet for kids. Sure. And everybody, a lot of people talk about, the kids don't stick with it. The kids, some kids stick with it, but, the name of the game in college is to try to get to the best situation, for yourself. And obviously in the meantime, you have to try to be a good teammate to maximize the stuff while you're there. But, people, for as long as college football, at least for the last 25 or 30 years, this has been a $1 billion business, and people act like, this is, they should be happy they're getting their school paid for. And I think they deserve more than just getting their school paid for. Yeah.
I think most people, I've talked to most people, I think they want that. I think they're just kind of surprised the last couple of years how something, like you said, the floodgates have kind of been open. It's like, we just need some guardrails here so we can kind of
and I think
expect that.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good way of saying it. Just let's condense it now. Let's all get together. There's 128, I think, or 100 and something, somewhere around there, schools that are playing. Let's all get together and decide. Hey, look, this is how much we can pay. I've me and our offensive line coach, Coach Garrett, have talked about it many times. We always have talked about we need to, because I was a very big proponent of, I think we need a group of 5 guy in the playoff. And we get 2 of them in there this year, and it turned into just an absolute disaster. Yeah. And after that happened, I was like, because a lot of the coaching staff was the complete difference. They were like, this is, I said, I like the idea of having the little guy, they get an opportunity. But I like, more so, I think I like the idea of, let's have a Power 4 playoff. Let's have a Group of 5 playoff. The FCS has been doing it for a long time, 1AA, and it's one of the coolest things. I love watching. It's a great deal. Yeah. I wish they would break it off Power 4, Group of 5. Yeah. You can still play each other. You can still do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, let's play one less game, and then let's play a Group of 5 playoff. Let's play a Power 4 playoff.
Interesting.
And I think it would be cool. It'd be a great way to figure out, hey, who's the best. And if you want to go play a bunch of Power 4 schools, go play them. Yeah. Same thing with the Power 4 schools. They want to play the Group of 5s. Yeah. Nothing changes. Just when right in December, we shut it down and we do a 16-team playoff or whatever we decide is best for everybody. But I think that would be a cool aspect to break that off and do that. I mean, it's just so much better games. You could. I mean, it would be so cool. Instead of James Madison playing Oregon and Tulane playing Ole Miss, how cool would it be if it's it's January 6th and you go fill up some Independence Bowl and play Louisiana Tech versus James Madison or UL versus Louisiana Tech in the Group of 5 national championship. That would be a really cool deal. Or ULM or Tulane. I'm trying to name them all off. But I think it would be. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. Kind of the king of the Power 5s.
Well, I think it's that kind of creative thinking to kind of find, like you said, kind of find a happy medium of moving forward. I think that's exciting. I'm just curious, what do you look for in players? What are you impressed by? And you're saying, I want to see this, from effort to zeal to whatever, or hard work ethic. What do you look for, man? What impresses you as a coach? You
to finish that last, if the NCAA is listening, I'm available. I can give career advice.
You can help them. I love it, man.
Here.
They should call you coach.
I could at least be a consultant.
That's right.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
obviously, you love the kids that work hard. They're always there, and they're there in the summers, and they do all the right stuff.
Yeah.
I guess the part that nobody really talks about, I think it's great the kids that actually have the 3.5s and the 4.0s and they make good grades, because that's the kind of kid I was growing up. We were talking about that the other day. I can remember numerous times just laying out and killing myself at practice, diving for balls and breaking my nose, taking ground ball, just anything, I loved practicing hard, but because I always felt like I had to do that.
Yeah.
And I made good grades. I didn't make great grades, but I made really good grades that nobody ever had to worry about.
Yeah.
That was always one of my things in college that one of my college coaches told me is he appreciated that he never had to worry about my grades. He didn't even have to look at them because he knew I was going to be eligible. And
I think that's something that's been missing from some of the dialogue.
I think it's something that really, and we're not talking about I'm talking about the kids that make the Cole Shepherds and the Kong Nose who have 4.0s, and one's going to Northwestern in Chicago and the other's going to LSU. Yeah. Just guys like that don't get enough credit.
It's a great point, dude.
They don't get enough credit for what they do in high school, because probably of our seniors, we had I think 25 or 30 of them. There's only going to be maybe 6 that get an opportunity to play at the next level, possibly at 7 at the most. And the other 23 or 18 or whatever, they're all just going to move on and go play and lead normal lives.
Right.
And at the end of the day, neither one of those guys will play at the next level. But they're likely going to be your doctor one day,
right.
or they're going to be an engineer building bridges, or they're going to be. So I think all that stuff really still matters.
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal, especially in high school. And then, too, is those guys that, really, it's not necessarily, obviously we want talented guys. Yeah. We love talented guys.
Of course.
Me personally, for my job and the livelihood of my family and my
makes
house and my mortgage and all that, I like really talented guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, you're really excited about, guys that grow over the 4 years.
Sure.
Because we had a kid last year that ended up, he's going to a really great school somewhere up in the Midwest. His name was Zane Maxwell. His dad works for the school board, and he didn't play as a senior. He didn't play a whole lot. He ended up having the opportunity to go play in college at a smaller school and all that stuff, and nobody really knew his name and all this. But to see how much better he got from when I got there until he graduated, those are kind of the little things that, at the end of the day you look at. And that's another kid, that'll end up, probably performing life-saving surgery on me one day. Or he's going to, or he's going to represent, he's going to represent one of our kids against the NCAA one day, or just guys like that. But I think that's the cool part of high school football is you get to see, it's real genuine, you get to see that kind of, improvement and kids that really, it's not all about them. It's not all about, because they know they're not going to LSU. They know they're not gonna be big time and all this stuff, but they just want to do it because that's the kind of people they are. So it kind of gives you hope. It gives you hope that with everything that's wrong with the world today, and there's a lot, that there's still kids out there that really work hard. We had a lot of kids this year that were the same way. That really just work hard, for the betterment of themselves and the team.
I appreciate you sharing all that. I think sometimes in the course of the conversation of college athletics, high school, that is not heard enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it means a lot to the kids, also the community. We are hosting an event in the coming weeks, a men's conference for Northwest Louisiana. And we're excited about the guests that are going to be with us. But one particular guest is Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre. And, I've always liked Brett Favre because of just his tenacity. I mean, you talk about talent. Obviously, he's got a cannon for an arm. But I just love the way he played. I mean, would he throw an interception? Sure. Would he throw all these touchdowns and and be willing to just get after it no matter what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just love that guy. And for him to come to Northwest Louisiana, does that get you fired up, or is that a guy that you go, heck yeah, man, that's fun?
I think the biggest thing that stood out to him was his toughness.
Yes.
You know, his physical toughness, his mental toughness. You know, you can remember him breaking fingers, and you know, I remember the game when his father had passed away, and he goes out there on Monday Night Football and throws 5 touchdowns.
Yes.
You know, or he gets hurt and plays through it, and you know, that's a lot of stuff that sports is lacking these days. You know, because it's all about money. You know, and it's trickled down. Like we said, it trickles down to to college. And you'll start seeing kids that'll sit out their senior year because they don't want to get hurt
because they want
to make that bag in college.
Yeah.
And you know, so you know, it's that's a lot of the stuff missing. You know, is the older guys. And we were talking about this. I can't remember who I was talking about it with. You know, we talk about our parents.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad had fell a couple of weeks ago, and he's well on his road to recovery. And, you know, if that happens to, you know, even kids these days, it takes them longer to get back, you know, than my 84-year-old dad who's already back up and walking and rolling. There's just more, the older crowd was built differently.
It's interesting.
And, you know, they ate foods that were actually food. And, they, you know, they did, you know, they lived a completely different life, but they're all, you know, the majority of them are all still alive. And, you know, they're out walking every day, and they're doing, you know, so it's just that older crowd, you know, not that he's quite to that age, but you know,
But he modeled that. I mean, he really did.
He went out there and played like the gladiators, man, like the gladiators of the past. You know, that would go and play hurt, and they just did it for the love of the game. You know, obviously they were getting paid in the meantime, but
he went the extra mile. I was excited about it, and I appreciate you being so fired up about that. You've never met Favre.
I never have.
You got to see him play, though, right?
I did get to see him play in Tennessee. I had a friend that played for the Titans, and we were there. And after the game, we would walk out where the players walked out because we'd ride home with them. And you know, we were trying to see Brett Favre. We were like, man, we got to go try to find him. We got to go see.
Dude,
You know, so they were the team buses were down there, so we were kind of hanging around because they, you know, in the NFL they pull them under the stadium, and so we were around the Jets team bus, and we were just, but we did get to see or maybe that was I don't remember if that was Favre or not, actually, now that I think about it. But
well, he did play for the Jets that one year.
I do remember running into Chad Pennington, and
that's fun.
Talk about a great guy. He was a phenomenal person too. But I'm pretty sure Brett Favre was there that year. I'm pretty sure that was his lone year in
New York.
In New York.
Yeah. Well, he had a great run in Minnesota as well.
It's all run. A lot of stuff's all run together. You know, so, you know.
Well, I appreciate you being a coach that values the athletic part, the scholastic part, for being an encourager. I think these kids, a lot of them go to our church and, you know, other churches around the area, and they're excited to play. I think that's awesome. And being so supportive of things like what we're doing with the men's conference or whatever, it just means a lot to us. But you're a blessing to our community. And so just want to say thanks, man. I appreciate your friendship, appreciate what you're doing. And it's exciting, bro. So we're just going to be praying blessings on you this year of 2026, and it's going to be fun.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you all so much. This was fun.
Cool, buddy. Yeah. You bet. Well, God bless you guys. Thank you for tuning in today on the Brad Jerkovich podcast. Coach Scogin, thank you again for being here. And I pray that you are encouraged this week. Make a difference this week.